oneself or those dear to us are seen as misfortunes or tragedies. When they happen to others, they become so many items of news. They become so many items news, however regrettable. And when they happen persistently and on a scale hard to comprehend, they deteriorate into so many statistical details. Maybe this is an inbuilt mechanism by which humanity can absorb the pains of inhumanity and violence. However strange this may look, it cannot be a recommendation to the media not to highlight the ways in which society denies dignity to itself and revels in barbarity. For all the creeping cynicism that the sick world of communal hatred raising its grisly trophies produces, the response to it ought to be civilized and based on hope. Defining humanity as being strenuously crafted by civilization may have an occasional danger of having to confront instances of frustration and denials. But not to define humanity as essentially civilized one is to reject civilized prescriptions for cure of any of its aberrant ways. Communalism is a civilizational malady. It erupts not for the sake of defending religions, but in the name of religions. It seems to carry with it the contradictory connotation of the word civilization. It means refinement in the ways of living. It also suggests drawing a hypocritical veil over our otherwise clumsy ways. Communalism is a massive subterfuge. It claims to have all the ingredients of moral self-righteousness, salvationary promise, and patriotic rhetoric that mask the mundane prose of hatred. It whips itself into frenzy before it spills over to the streets. These rioting movements produce faceless automations that have no use for humanity or its dignity. Thus, we are made to witness and sometimes participate in periodic unveilings of a seamier side of civilizational life. But it cannot be met or combated by ways which civilization would not approve of. It is both a constraint and a moral strength of the civilized life. The defeat of refinement and culture in communal rights is too obvious to need emphasis. It may only make people lament who are not brazen about the precious loss. The loss of lives, destruction of property, and the violence of human dignity, which people recount and condole after the riots in a mood of real or borrowed contrition, do not necessarily guarantee that such tragedy is not repeated in future. Ashoka's remorse over war and violence, even if genuine, did not prevent the rulers from fighting more wars and reveling in more violence, and from the people endorsing them unless they were at the receiving end. Generally, people tend to have short memories, particularly those that warn and remind of them of pain. They are, as the saying goes, like a woman in labor who swear not to repeat the sport that brought them this pain. If such short memories serve mankind well in some ways, they can be reasons for repeated misfortunes. Wars have not been averted by reminding people of the pains that they promise. For those who make war and those who suffer by it are two different people. Communal rights too fall into this predicament, and the society pays dearly for it. It is better than to recognize that communal rights as manifestation of an inherent malaise are the sites where human rights violation will take place. They become law and order problems that the state has to deal with, which it does more or less efficiently. It is a firefighting agency, and it may call for means that themselves involve violence. The idea that communal rights should be civilized affairs and learn to respect human rights is a laughably naive idea. What is important for a civilized life, civilized society, is to realize that communal rights, however mean, destructive they may be, are less dangerous. Communal rights are less dangerous. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm just winding it up. Yes. Less dangerous and more easily dealt with than the communal virus that permeates society and produces such outbreaks. Communalism is an ideology and an attitude that is produced and consumed exchanged in what is apparently a civilized society that is conscious of its rights if oblivious of its duties. It is heard at different frequencies and enjoyed or rejected, often without meaning to do so. Many of its low intensity symptoms go either unnoticed or passed over, except by groups that produce or promote them. Communalization of society is a grim but often imperceptible process, like addiction to drugs. Many do not even realize that they are wholly and intensely communal, while they are quick to point out how communal their others are. In fact, there are many right-thinking people who are otherwise fair and humane who show themselves up as a soft communalists. They are not recruits in the communal riots, but they learn to understand why riots take place or who caused them. This large army of sleepwalkers or sleepwalking approvers of communalism, this large army of sleepwalking approvers of communalism who are apparently pious, who love their religion and gods, who are not averse to the idea of protecting them, becomes the indicator of the pervading ideology of communalism in society. Such society increasingly loses its power of immunity against the disease that produces communal riots and sponsor human rights violations with a clean conscience. This is truly a dreadful prospect for those who value civilized living. Real insurance against the violations of human dignity and riots in the mindless frenzy of riots does not lie in the strong state that would cudgel the offenders to sanity, but in exposing and fighting against the insidious ideology of communalism. It does not mean fighting one brand of communalism with another. Homeopathic principle of like cures like does not tackle communalism. It has to be fought, and fought on the principle of respect for all religions, rights of all religions to promote societal harmony and human welfare. The communal hatred which politics has no scruples about harnessing to its use cumulatively produces both the mood for and the mode of disregarding human values and dignity in the name of fighting for religion. Medieval world had no qualms about burning the body to save the soul. Modern society should atavistically rehearse such modes of cleansing does not show it as being truly susceptible to the evolving ideals of humanity. Fight against communalism should begin with the awareness that such insidious ideology sanctions and promotes conditions that negate human dignity and rights, and that by fighting what is perceived as a salvatory war in the name of religion denies the rights of a people for decent societal living. When the fight for one's religion becomes a fight against another, it is a society which bleeds. In fact, fight against the canker of communalism is indeed a fight for human rights, to live and to let live, to live in peace and dignity. It is an effort of the saner segments of society, of humanity, to protect the values that should hold back the society from sliding into insensitivity and moral atrophy. It is true that the voice of sanity often sounds like a helpless lament, while the shrill call of hatred whips people to action. But we must make the voice of sanity heard, not as a helpless lament, but as a voice of strength, of hope, and humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. You have thrown light on the magnitude and the gravity of the communal violence and communal riots. As we know that religionism, regionalism, linguism, casteism, and primitiveness are the missiles against social justice and social order. A related topic to this is human rights and freedom of religion. I would like to call upon Advocate Sri Kotwal, Central Government Standing Council, High Court of Karnataka, and request him to be as brief as possible. Thank you.
Respected Chair, respected teachers and my dear students. In continuation of what Dr. Surendra has said, the human rights and religious freedom is my topic. I'll take 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. Okay. The word religion itself, insight, induces violence, as said by Dr. Surendra. But when we deeply get into that, it is not so. It is on the contrary. It contemplates all the human rights enshrined in all the declarations and all. When you get into all the religious aspects. Introduction. Religion really means submission to the Creator and doing good to the creatures. Therefore, the essence of religion is being in God and benevolence to mankind. Religion is certainly not the name given to ritualism or formalism of worship and observance of certain customs or dogmas. The denial of freedom of religion in various forms has led not only the untold misery, but also the persecution directed against entire groups of people. Wars have been waged in the name of religion or belief, either with the name of imposing upon the individual or a pretext extending economic and political domination. Next. International approach. In the United Nations Charter, religion is specified along with race, sex, and language as an impermissible ground of differentiation. Initially, efforts were made to incorporate the freedom of religion into UN Charter as a fundamental right. However, the Charter refers only to human rights and fundamental freedoms in general. Article 18, the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, either alone or in community with others and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Next. Religious rights. Every person has the right to determine his or her own religious, own faith and creeding according to conscience. Every person has the right to privacy of his belief, to express his religious beliefs in worship, teaching, practice, proclaim the implications of his belief, or relation in social, political community. Every person has the right to associate with others or to organize with them for religious purposes. In fact, in our country, if a religious group has converted into a particular other religion, the same religion has reconverted them forcefully to the religion of their origin. That is the violation of the human rights, the religious rights as such. Next. Right of dignity. The submission of man to God alone declares that there is none worthy of submission except God. Therefore, it is clear that man is the noblest and the best in creation, and the entire creation is subservient to him, to be utilized by him for his development. Excuse me? The 18 pages I had to skip. Human rights and Christianity. According to Christianity, human dignity was manifest when God created man in his own image. By doing so, God established a relationship with human beings. Jesus Christ called God his heavenly Father. He also called his disciples friends. All the prophets, all the messengers of God, they are come as human beings. The Prophet Muhammad, the Basavanna, in any other messengers, they are come in a human, a mankind. Next. Human rights and Islam. The standpoint of Islam in respect of human rights, equality and freedom revolves around 3 points. Equality in the value of human beings, equality before law and order in the right to speak, and equality in economic affairs. In Islamic territory, the person, property and honor of every individual are fully protected, and thereby equality before law and order is ensured. Islam insists on paying attention to the conditions of protected non-Muslims and treating them securely. The right to speak can explicitly found in the safeguard of rights of non-Muslims in the Islamic territory. It has gone so far to give them a liberty to practicing customs entirely opposed to those of Islam. It is understood that a Muslim man has a right to marry a non-Muslim, a Christian or a Jew, but giving her the right to retain and practice her own religion. In the question of equality to economic affairs, the Quran lays a special emphasis on the uplifting of economically depressed poor, which a state levy was to be collected from the rich. That is called zakat. Next. Human rights and Hinduism. The practice of Hinduism from ancient times was flexible enough to accommodate people of other faiths. The goal of ancient Indian religion was to give humanity spiritual consolation as well as to point the path of final release from the worldly life. The ancient sages of India seem to have thought of such issues as reflecting problems that beset humanity everywhere in the world. Therefore, they mainly concerned solving problems through the world. It was universal peace, Vishwa Shanti, that they aimed at. The constitutions of nearly all modern states have incorporated more or less elaborate guarantees for freedom of religion and conscience and for protection against discrimination on grounds of religion or belief. But the reality is disheartening. Religion, instead of promoting harmony, creates disharmony. Instead of curtailing violence, it induces violence. I'm highlighting some facts, the historical facts. When Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was assassinated, more than 3,000 Sikhs were massacred in Delhi alone in the name of religion. The 300-year-old Babri Masjid was demolished on 6 December 1992. Followed by this, curfew was imposed at 213 places and spread over nearly 15 states. More than 450 people were killed and crores of people suffered for months from its impact in cities and towns. Simultaneously, the attacks were made on Hindus in Bangladesh after destruction of the masjid. In Bombay, the religious fanatics made bomb attacks on the innocent peoples. Between 1981 to 1992, about 11,538 people killed in Khalistan violence in Punjab, of which 61% were Sikhs. In Kashmir, 2,272 unarmed civilians died during the violence in 1988 to 1992, among which Muslims constituted 78%. The riots in Bangalore in October 1994 were broadcast of Urdu news, took many innocent lives, and the publication of English translation of Malayalam story, The Muhammad the Idiot, in Deccan Herald, which led to riots in Mysore and Bangalore. Foreign tourists are also taken hostages and sometimes even killed in the name of religion. All that this demonstrates the vulnerability of Indian people today. Human rights and Western approach. The people in the West have a habit of attributing every good thing to themselves and try to prove that it is because of them the world got this blessing. Otherwise, the world was steeped in ignorance and completely unaware of all these benefits. Now let us look at the question of human rights. It is very loudly and vociferously claimed that the world got the concept of basic human rights from the Magna Carta of Britain. But the Westerners followed the double standards. In what we see in Iraq and Afghanistan and Palestinians, in Iraq alone, 15,000 innocent people, including women and children, were killed just lack of food and medicines. So what happened to these human rights activists? They call themselves the champions of human rights, the Westerners. They follow the double standards. Even when we see in a neighboring country, they have imposed emergency, and there are many human rights violations in Pakistan. The America has demolished the Iraq and other Afghanistan in the name of the reinstating the original governments. So what happened when the Pakistan's president, the Pervez Musharraf, he displaced Nawaz Sharif, a elected government, but America has not said anything to the Pakistan. Even now they have imposed an emergency. if the other country has imposed such an emergency, the things would have been different. The America would have imposed an economic sanctions on the first day itself. The United Nations, which can now be more aptly and untruly described as a divided nations, made a declaration of universal human rights and passed a resolution against genocide and framed regulations to check it. But as you all know, there is not a single resolution or a regulation of the United Nations which can be enforced. They are just an expression of a pious hope. Freedom of religion in China. In the Chinese-controlled Tibet autonomous region, Buddhist monks and nuns are ill-treated and imprisoned. The reciting of boundless wisdom, a prayer written by Dalai Lama, that refers to the freedom of Tibet is banned. The monks and nuns cannot keep the Dalai Lama's picture. They cannot even pronounce his name. A monk who had a book containing a prayer of Dalai Lama was expelled from his monastery in 1995. Monks are not allowed to listen to any broadcast from India or to the Voice of America programs. The Chinese government considers the spending of money, material, manpower on religion is a waste. Let's go to Gandhian view. Gandhi had a very little inclination towards the religion. He visits temples and our pilgrimage very rare. He never felt to urge to do so because to him, service was the highest form of religion, and for his visit to Bhangi, an untouchable colony, was more appropriate than visiting to a temple. In Rishikesh, a seer asked Bapu why he did not wear the sacred thread. He replied, "I will not wear the sacred thread, for I see no necessity for it. Moreover, it should be a symbol of spiritual regeneration, presupposing a deliberate attempt on the part of wearer achieving a higher and purer life. I doubt whether in the present state of Hinduism and of India, Hindus can vindicate the right to wear a symbol charged with such meaning. That right can come only after Hinduism has purged itself to untouchability and has shed a host of other evils and shams that has become rampant in it." In another incident, Swami Vivekananda, somebody has asked when the plague, the people were suffering from plague. Somebody asked, "Swamiji, you are not a doctor. He started helping them out. Somebody has started asking, you are not a doctor, you cannot help them out." So Swamiji said, "What I am doing is my prayer. What you do in the temples are only rituals." Describing the contemporary situation, Dr. Radhakrishna says that we are living in an age of surprising scientific advancement and thrilling technological development, but astonishing ethical gloom and astounding spiritual degradation. The crying need of the times is to make one who has become learned and skilled, wise and virtuous. Scientific development has given man learning and skill, but wisdom and virtue are the blessings of religion. Therefore, the imminent need is to return to the religion and save man and his achievements from total annihilation of threatening catastrophe. Conclusion. Yes. Religions may speak different languages, may wear many faces, may speak in many dialects, but their one and authentic voice is voice of compassion, as the Sanskrit poet says, "Ika rasa karuna iva." That is, there is only one rasa, that is karuna, iva or compassion. Likewise, the Urdu poet says, "खुदा के बंदे हैं हजारों, बनों में फिरते हैं मारे मारे. मैं बंदा बनूंगा उसका जिसको खुदा के बंदों से प्यार होगा." Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Kotwal. You have raised a very good point that there should be no religious fanaticism, but religious tolerance, and state must see that it promotes all religions in like manner. There cannot be state-sponsored religion, but state should be religiously neutral. Next speaker is Professor J.R. Jagdish. He will speak on right to profession and trade. After having covered the religious order, now we are going to economic order of the human rights.
Good afternoon, everybody. Chairperson, my dear colleagues, and also my dear students. I would like to thank at the outset the organizers for organizing this very workshop or conference on human rights like that. 2 scholarly papers in the afternoon session you heard. Scenario we have to change, but Professor Nadkarni has already reminded me of this is purely a technical paper.